What's up, guys? Welcome back to Deeper Dive CFB. Back with another video. It's a big week of college football. A lot of good matchups. We're going to go through all of them. I am going to sort by conference again, but I encourage you to watch the video all the way through. But I just wanted to say before we get started, if you are here just to hear my take on your team or a specific conference, I'll leave the time markers in the description below of where I talk about each conference. You'll just be able to fast forward to that time and hear me talk about your team or a specific conference. But like I said, I encourage you to watch the video all the way through. Thank you for watching. Let's get right into it. All right, guys, starting with the ACC. Clemson was off this week, and they're the only really legit team in that conference. So not going to be some major storylines, but biggest one for sure. Virginia Tech was on the road and beats Miami. I was bragging on Jaron Williams, the Miami young quarterback. Miami obviously not who they used to be, but he was kind of that one shining spot. Hadn't turned the ball over, really efficient. Well, first quarter he throws 3 picks and he gets benched. Definitely not a good sign for the Hurricanes early on. But you have to give a lot of credit to Kosi Perry, their backup quarterback. We've seen him a lot in the past. Saw him a lot last year, when they weren't very good. But he looked really good yesterday. He had 422 yards through the air and 4 touchdowns. It was just too little, too late. I mean, it was 28-0 at one point early in the second quarter. You just can't throw 3 picks like that. Especially against a team like Virginia Tech, who's pretty evenly matched with you. Neither of them very good, but at the end of the day, you throw 3 picks, you let them right back in the game. It's 28-0, like I said. One thing for Virginia Tech is they started Hendon Hooker. It was his first career start, and he looked really good. They committed to the run game. He didn't, put up big stats through the air. That's usually how you're going to win with a young quarterback. Defense is going to have to help you out. Virginia Tech certainly did. It's certainly a big win. It's always impressive to go on the road and win, especially at a place like Miami. But they still haven't shown enough to really, convince me they're going to win, 9 or 10 games. Tough loss for Miami, too. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It seems like that's how it's been for the last 15 years. Right when Jaron Williams starts to, get to playing good football, they start out 0-2. They win 2 in a row, and, then he throws 3 picks in this game. And it just sucks for, it's not like the receivers can necessarily control that. It's just a tough situation there, but, Manny Diaz is rebuilding it, and this is certainly a tough loss for them, but we'll see if they can bounce back. Pitt escapes Duke in a wild game. Pitt got up early. It was a sloppy game. 10 total turnovers, which is just, that's not good football right there. 10 turnovers between the two teams. Pitt took advantage of a lot of Duke mishaps early. It's 26-3 at one point in the third quarter. But Duke really turned it on, and mostly because Pitt started fumbling the football too. They had 2 fumbles late in the third quarter and then a pick by Kenny Pickett. And just like that, Duke was back in the game, and they actually took the lead late in the game. And Kenny Pickett was able to muster together a nice drive, and they won 33-30. Like I've said, guys, Pitt always finds a way to make it interesting, but they always seem to find a way to win it too. It's just crazy to think how Pitt can win the game when they turn the ball over 3 times. But you think about field position too. Duke got the ball on the 4, the 43, and 25, all in Pitt's territory late in the game from those turnovers. So they escaped, but certainly an ugly win, but a win they'll certainly take on the road. Duke was a team I mentioned in my last video as a team who can kind of take advantage of a weak year in the ACC, but they're falling right into that clump of just mediocrity. So I guess this just further proves my point that the ACC is just not very good this year. Other than that, nothing really too big in the ACC. North Carolina goes on the road and beats Georgia Tech. Louisville survives at home against Boston College, but main takeaway is just the ACC is not very good. And Clemson's obviously not playing their best football, but there's going to be a year where you're not going to be on top of your game and still be able to contend for a national championship. This might be the year for Clemson. All right, guys, moving on to the Big Ten. It was a big day in the Big Ten. Started off with Michigan, Iowa, a must-win game for Jim Harbaugh. It's year 5. They haven't taken the steps offensively that we thought they would in the offseason. And they really didn't take them this game either. Shea Patterson was 14-26 with no touchdowns and a pick. He didn't look very good. They put up 10 points in the first quarter, and you thought, okay, maybe they are starting to put it together. But right after they scored that touchdown, it stalled. Obviously they didn't score a point the rest of the game, and from that point it was a field position game. I think I was expecting more from Iowa offensively. Their offensive line just could not get it together. Poor Nate Stanley, sacked 8 times. He didn't help himself by throwing 3 picks, but I think a lot of those were rushed throws. There was one, they were in Michigan territory, just had to throw off his back foot. He's getting, pressured. Michigan does have a good defense. Stanley certainly rushed. Iowa just couldn't get in a rhythm. They really didn't commit to the run game. It just wasn't working. Nate Stanley, if you take away the 3 picks and the 8 sacks, it looks all right, but you just can't take that stuff away. I mean, especially the 8 sacks. I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot of sacks. Especially in a game where I thought it was gonna be a lot closer. I thought Iowa was gonna be the more physical team, and they weren't. I mean, Michigan came out ready to play defensively. They came out ready to play offensively too. They just couldn't scheme things together with Shea Patterson and Zach Charbonnet. Their true freshman running back only ran 13 times for 42 yards. So I just don't think they proved anything on the offensive side of the ball to think, all right, we're gonna go beat Ohio State or even like a Penn State and even maybe a Michigan State. I mean, there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered, and that's only going to come with time. I think the main question right now is, was the Josh Gaddis move the right hire? And certainly isn't now. They've just come out really flat to start the year offensively. But like I said, it's not going to necessarily affect the rest of their season. But if they're going to win some of these games, I mean, they got Penn State in 2 weeks on the road. They'll go to Champaign, Illinois next week to play the Illini, and then they'll go right on to Happy Valley to play Penn State, and that's gonna be a big game for them. That's gonna be bigger than this game for sure. I mean, this game is a must-win just because you can't lose to Iowa at home. But now they've gotten past Iowa. I mean, that's a game you expect to win. Going on the road to Penn State, it's gonna be a tough matchup, especially the way Penn State looks, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But certainly the biggest storyline in the Big Ten. Next, guys, Ohio State takes care of business at home against Michigan State, 34-10 final. Fields is really efficient. The great combo in the backfield with J.K. Dobbins and the freshman Master Teague. They combined for 38 rushes, 262 yards, and a touchdown. Justin Fields just got so much to work with. I mean, he's got those two running backs. He's got K.J. Hill, Ben Victor, Garrett Wilson, the freshman. I mean, he's got so many weapons around him. Their offense is really like no other Big Ten offense is. I mean, Wisconsin and Iowa are very, pro style. Michigan's trying to get like Ohio State is, but like I said, obviously not doing a very good job. But I think Ohio State offensively is above and beyond in that conference, and they took care of business. I mean, this game is not as much about Michigan State. I think coming into the game, we all knew they weren't going to be able to compete. Especially late in the game. I mean, close game, first quarter. But I think eventually the athletes are going to win out. And I think we saw that pretty handily. I think we'll find out a lot more about Michigan State next week. They go on the road to Wisconsin. And that's certainly be a big game for Mark D'Antonio. He's 5 years removed away from a college football playoff appearance where they played Alabama. And, his program just hasn't lived up to that potential these last few years. Whenever Urban Meyer joined the Big Ten, it was a struggle to get over Michigan State. And now D'Antonio just not able to, stay on that level with Ohio State. As we saw yesterday. So I think that'll be a big game for Michigan State going on the road to Wisconsin, and we'll see if they can compete with the Badgers. And next, guys, like I mentioned, Penn State off to a quiet 5-0 start, and nobody really talking about them. I think Ohio State's really dominated the conversation, plus Jim Harbaugh and all the issues in Michigan. But Penn State is a really good team. They got Sean Clifford. He's a former Elite 11 quarterback. Redshirt sophomore. He had to wait his turn behind Trace McSorley, who's now in the NFL. Clifford's really efficient. He's 20 of 29 for 264 and 3 touchdowns against Purdue. Plus he's got a high completion percentage at 67%. He's got 1,443 yards passing and 12 touchdowns versus 2 picks. They got true freshman running back Noah Cain, who from IMG Academy in Florida, who's really making a big impact there. He's seeing a increased role every week. And I think part of the reason Penn State hasn't gotten, any attention is because they haven't really played anybody. But, that's certainly going to change. They go on the road to Iowa, they host Michigan, then they go on the road to Michigan State. So we'll find out a lot about this Nittany Lions team the next 3 weeks. But, I just wanted to mention, they're 5-0 and nobody's really talking about it. Like I said, haven't played anybody, but we'll certainly find out here, after these next 3 weeks if they're legit or not. Next story, guys, Wisconsin rolls. Jonathan Taylor only bolstering his Heisman campaign. Ran the ball 19 times, 186 yards, 4 touchdowns on the ground. Also added one through the air, had a receiving touchdown. They have an offense that's built around him. He's definitely going to get the stats. It's just about what other guys are going to vote for him. I think we'll find out a little bit more about Wisconsin next week, playing Michigan State, who does have a good defense. I mean, to hold Ohio State to 34 is not too bad. I see no reason why JT can't run for 130 to 200 yards. He's that good. He's proven that. Ran all over Michigan, who has pretty good run defense. So, JT only bolstering his Heisman talk. Last story out of the Big Ten, guys. Nebraska finds a way to win at home against Northwestern, 13-10. Adrian Martinez gets hurt. Didn't look great, but didn't look bad. He gets hurt. The backup comes in, leads a nice drive, in the last minute of the game. And a walk-on Lane McCallum from Norfolk, Nebraska. Like I said, he's a walk-on. He makes a 25-yard field goal. Like, probably wouldn't have been good from 35, although he made it from 35 earlier. But it wasn't the typical college kicker. Didn't have much leg behind it, but he gets it through. Everybody goes crazy. I'll put a link in the description below showing a video of that. It was really cool, just to see it, walk on like that in his home state, make a kick like that for his beloved Cornhuskers. It was a really cool moment. But I think maybe bigger story in this game, like I said in previous videos, Nebraska's not as good as we thought they were going to be. Barely beaten Northwestern 13-10. Yeah, Northwestern's got a good defense and they're pretty solid there. But I thought it was cool that a sophomore walk-on kicker like that would have that type of moment. All right, guys, moving on to the Big 12. Texas and OU both go on the road and what some might call trap games and pull wins out. Obviously both those teams will meet in Dallas next week for the Red River rivalry. I'll be there. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Both those teams didn't look ahead to next week. Focus on the task at hand. Starting off with OU, Jalen Hurts is good once again. 16-24, 228 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ramondre Stevenson, the running back for Oklahoma, he's a JUCO transfer. He's had a touchdown in every game. He's really emerging. He had a big one. He had a big run where he literally just ran over a Kansas linebacker for a touchdown. They also got Trey Sermon. We'll see if Kennedy Brooks is available for next week. No update on him. Oklahoma's certainly good in that backfield. Plus all the weapons that Jalen Hurts has got. When you look at CeeDee Lamb, Charleston Rambo, Hazelwood, they got so many weapons. So the OU offense looking good going into that game. And then for Texas looked pretty good. Forced 4 picks from Austin Kendall, who was actually a transfer from Oklahoma. Beat West Virginia 42-31. Really wasn't that close of a game. West Virginia added a touchdown in the final minute. Texas defense looked good, like I said. A lot of injuries in the secondary. Question coming into the game, but those guys stepped up. Like I said, 4 picks. It was huge because Sam Ehlinger didn't have his best game. It was 18-33. Did throw a pick, but he had 3 total touchdowns. At the end of the day, Sam Ehlinger's so-so games are going to be a lot of guys' good games. He's developed into that kind of player. But yeah, guys, defense for Texas really starting to look good after a rough game against LSU. Bounced back pretty well against Oklahoma State. And looked pretty good yesterday against that air raid system. Typically works even if you don't have the best athletes. So it was a good showing from Texas to be able to put that performance up. And like I said, guys, this is gonna be a crazy matchup next week in Dallas. Texas versus OU. It's crazy every year. I've been to about, I was thinking about this earlier, probably 11 or 12 in my life. I'm 19 years old, so I've been to a lot of them. It's always crazy, and it's gonna be even more crazy. Back-to-back years where both teams are really good. So really looking forward to that. Next story in the Big 12, guys. Baylor moves to 5-0. Certainly a surprise. Started off 3-0, and I kind of discounted it to, okay, playing a bunch of Group of 5 schools who aren't very good, which was true. But they've proven these last 2 weeks that they've really taken that next step. I mean, beat Iowa State 23-21 at home last week, and then goes on the road this week and takes care of Kansas State pretty easily, 31-12. Charlie Brewer, really gutsy quarterback, 14-23. For 230 yards and a touchdown. Did have a little bit of an injury scare. No update on him. I think he should be good. Most of those injury reports come out Monday, so we'll see if Charlie Brewer's out. But they have a good backfield in JaMychal Hasty and John Lovett. Both had 10 yards per carry in this game. I think the bigger story here is the Baylor defense. I mean, really solid against Iowa State. Shut him out for 3 quarters. Yeah, they let up a little bit in the 4th, but win's a win. And then to hold Kansas State to 12 is a pretty good accomplishment. They had 6 sacks on Skylar Thompson, forced 2 turnovers, and Kansas State was 6 of 17 on 3rd down. So Baylor's defense really showed out. Kansas State will have a bye to kind of figure things out. Rough few weeks for them, losing to Oklahoma State and now Baylor. So we'll see if they can figure it out. But Baylor 5-0. That's a big story in the Big 12. And last in the Big 12, guys, Texas Tech and Iowa State both roll at home. Texas Tech actually upsets Oklahoma State in this game, 45-35. I mentioned in my last video. Actually predicting that Oklahoma State would win the game. I mentioned that Texas Tech quarterback Alan Bowman was out, so I didn't see Jet Duffy, their backup, being able to play well. I was dead wrong. Jet Duffy had 424 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's got a big weapon in TJ Vasher. Good run game with Sodoric Thompson and Tajon Henry. Oklahoma State, 5 turnovers. Tylen Wallace and Juba Hubbard didn't have bad games. Both got a lot of touches, but they couldn't really break loose. So, I mean, definitely a big win for Tech, though. after getting basically embarrassed on the road at Oklahoma, 55-16. A big win for them to be able to kind of solidify themselves in the Big 12. That's 2 years in a row they've beaten Oklahoma State. Like I said, big win for Tech. Rough loss for Oklahoma State. I was high on Oklahoma State after seeing them, and I discounted the fact too much that they have a freshman quarterback. He had 3 picks, and those 3 picks aren't going to play too often. Next, guys, I've been high on Iowa State, and they really proved my point right. I picked them in this game, and they blew out TCU 49-24. I mean, like I said, big believer in Brock Purdy, and he had a big bounce back game after the rough loss to Baylor. 19-24 for 247 yards and 2 touchdowns. Plus he had 102 yards on the ground running. He hasn't really been known as a huge runner. He's known for the pump fake, but he must have used that a lot because he had 102 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. He's got a nice wide receiver in Deshaunte Jones. He had 10 catches for 110 yards. But we're not used to seeing this from TCU teams just getting blown out like that. Gary Patterson usually has his guys ready to play, especially defensively, but they did not look good. They'll have a bye to bounce back, but big win for Iowa State. Guys, on to the Pac-12. Big story here. Washington is upset by Stanford 23-13. Nobody saw this one coming at all because Stanford has not looked good this year. Washington coming off a pretty good win at home against USC, but the offense just looked bad. Looked really bad. I mean, Eason was 16-36, below a 50% completion percentage for 206 yards, and the guy last week who went off, Stephen Ahmed, only had 6 carries. Just didn't commit to the run game for some reason. Just kind of felt like they were down and they had to claw back. I'd bet if they kind of committed to the run game a little more early on, they wouldn't put so much pressure on Eason and become so predictable. But big win for Stanford. I mean, Davis Mills, 21-30, 293 yards and a touchdown. Really saw him progress last week. KJ Costello has been their guy for a while now. He's kind of been dealing with injuries really from the start of the year. And Davis Mills, who's another highly recruited quarterback, a lot like Costello, really stepping up and big win. To beat Washington, it wasn't like it was a fluke either. I mean, it was a 10-point game. So big win for Stanford. Cameron Scarlett, Stanford's always had that feature back. They had McCaffrey. Even going back earlier, they had Toby Gerhart, and they had McCaffrey, Bryce Love, and now they got Cameron Scarlett. Went off 33 carries, 151 yards, and a touchdown. A big win for Stanford. Next, guys, Oregon escapes Cal. It was only 17-7. This Oregon team certainly not putting up the points we thought they would. Coming into the year. Part of that though is they had 3 turnovers, 85 yards and penalties. Whenever you have that much talent and that good of a quarterback, there's going to be a bigger reason as to why you're not scoring. Herbert was 20-33 for 214 yards, so not bad, but not great. But he's going up against a pretty stingy Cal defense too. Travis Dye and C.J. Verdell, a good combo in the backfield for Oregon. It's a game they just won. Didn't win pretty, but they just won it. I didn't pick Cal just because seeing their backup quarterback Modster come into the game last week after Garbers got hurt. Wasn't really impressed, and he didn't impress in this game. 17-34, complete half his passes, 2 picks, and they had no run game going, less than 3 yards per carry. It just shows how much Cal misses Garbers. If Garbers is healthy, this might be a game they win on the road. Oregon finding ways to win, not pretty like I said, but they're kind of that last hope, especially now that Washington went down. They're kind of that last hope of maybe getting a Pac-12 team in the playoff because it just seems like every week these teams are beating up on each other. It's been a theme every week, and certainly continues this week. And last in the Pac-12, guys, Arizona beats Colorado on the road. They got Khalil Tate back, and he shined. 31-41 for 404 yards and 3 touchdowns. Big win for Kevin Sumlin. Kevin Sumlin obviously fired from A&M. Started off good there, it didn't work out. It's good to see him bounce back. You never want guys to just stay down. Getting fired is always tough, but someone seems really been bouncing back. I mean, they're 4-1. They look really good. Next week they'll take on Washington. I think that'll be a really big game. Washington doesn't look great. And meantime, Mel Tucker at Colorado, his first year. Tough loss for them at home. They'll have a chance to go on the road and play Oregon next week, and we'll see if the theme of the Pac-12 beating on each other continues. All right, now on to the SEC, guys. Big story, probably the biggest story in college football, guys. Florida beats Auburn at home. It was the game of the week. Game day was in Gainesville. It was a really sloppy game, so it wasn't some clean football game. Both teams had 4 turnovers. Kyle Trask struggled with turnovers, especially in the first half. Bo Nix had 3 picks. Just a few plays made a big impact. I mean, LaMichael Pirine had a beastly 88-yard touchdown run. That really blew it open. To start the game, 64-yard touchdown to Freddie Swain over the middle. Those 2 plays stand out for Florida. And Auburn, they had a nice touchdown over the middle of the field. Bo Nix had a nice deep throw. He only had a 40% completion rate, and that's just not going to cut it on the road. The SEC is starting to become more quarterback dominant, but traditionally you don't have to play great offense to win the SEC. Defense, can win. Completing 40% of your passes it's never okay. Maybe Bo Nix has been overhyped just because a guy like Seth Williams helped him out all year. Seth Williams makes a great catch in the Cotton Bowl, and they beat Oregon. Seth Williams, 166 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Seth Williams, the guy who's maybe bailed Nix out a little bit, but Nix is still a true freshman. I'm kind of thinking about Nebraska. Maybe we kind of put Auburn in that same category. Now Auburn's a lot better than Nebraska, I know, but we as college football fans, after just seeing a small sample size, tend to exaggerate things a little bit. And maybe Bo Nix was never ready for this game. Maybe he had a great game against Mississippi State, but Mississippi State's not very good. Going on the road to play Florida is a whole different beast. So Auburn definitely outmatched. Kyle Trask, like I said, struggled with fumbles, but he played well. 19 to 31 for 234 yards, 2 touchdowns. Huge scare for Kyle Trask though. Big Auburn D lineman fell on his ankle. And he ends up spraining his MCL. Came back in the game and was fine. Dan Mullen didn't like it, called it a dirty play. Auburn guys disagreed. So there's a little tension there, but it's certainly a big story. Kyle Trask is okay, and he's really proven to be good. Maybe better than Felipe Franks. Who knows? Because he's injured. He's out for the year too. But Kyle Trask has certainly stepped into the role and played really well. Trask will have to play really good next week too. Florida goes on the road to play LSU. Definitely the game of the week. And that's hard for me to say, being a Texas fan, because I love the Texas OU matchup. But Florida LSU, for what that means around the college football landscape, 2 undefeated teams going at it in Death Valley. That's going to be a really good one. It's a night game too, so that should be crazy. So Kyle Trask will have to play really well in that one, and then for Auburn, they have a bye, so they'll be able to figure things out a little bit. But for Auburn, I still think you're pretty satisfied at where you're at, 5-1. It was always gonna be tough to go on the road and beat Florida. But 5-1, you kind of regroup a little bit, let guys heal up a little bit, and attack the rest of the season. All right, next guys, Georgia and LSU both take care of business as expected. Georgia goes on the road to Tennessee. It was actually kind of a close game in the first quarter. First half really. Tennessee made the move to the freshman quarterback Brian Maurer. Certainly worked for a little bit, but at the end of the day, this game was never going to be close for 4 quarters. I had it as my 10 confidence game on Pick'em just for that very reason. I mean, yeah, Tennessee came out. Fans came out energized, which I definitely appreciate. It was a big rivalry game. They came out juiced. Team came out juiced, but at the end of the day, whenever that wears off, Georgia really played well. From 24-29 for 288 yards and 2 touchdowns. They have a good 3-headed punch in the backfield with Brian Harrion, DeAndre Swift, and Zamir White. But Georgia goes on the road and takes care of business as expected. Tennessee now 1-4, and those fans don't like losing, and they've been losing a lot these last 20 years. Certainly they'll be starting to play some more winnable games. They played Florida and Georgia the last 2 weeks. It's pretty tough. So we'll see if Jeremy Pruitt can start to bounce back and show progress with the program. Yeah, and then with LSU guys, they got off to a slow start as well, but Joe Burrow had another great game. 27-38, 5 touchdowns. The run game looked good. They had 3 guys who really ran the ball pretty well, and then they got so many good weapons guys. Jefferson, Chase, Thaddeus Moss, son of Randy Moss, is pretty cool, and then Derek Dillon. They all had touchdowns. Playing Utah State. It is kind of weird in week 6 to see a team like LSU playing Utah State. I wish they would kind of schedule that kind of week 3, week 4, but it is what it is. They look pretty good, and like I said, they're going to host Florida next week. That's going to be a big game. But Burrow's already proven that he can beat a good defense like he beat UT. But I would say Florida's defense is definitely on another level as opposed to UT. And see if Burrow can start to prove nationally that this new offense works. Like I said, prove it against Texas, but let's see if he can prove it against Florida, Alabama, some of these bigger name teams. Last in the SEC, guys, Ole Miss and Mizzou both win at home. This Ole Miss game, they host Vanderbilt. They win 31-6. It was a good showing from the team. They've made the move to true freshman quarterback John Rice Plumlee, who also plays baseball, and he's done a really good job. I mean, he only had 99 yards passing, but he only had 18 attempts too. They've really committed to the run game, and he had 22 carries for 165 and a touchdown. I mean, dude is fast, dude is physical. Definitely the right move for Ole Miss to really commit to the ground game, use their athletes. They have 3 running backs who all scored touchdowns in this game. So huge credit to Rich Rodriguez, who we know from the past, coached at Arizona and Michigan, West Virginia, schools like that. He's now their offensive coordinator, just to kind of adapt his system around the skill set they have. Ole Miss is 3-3, and like I mentioned, this is a must-win game for them. They show up. Big win for Ole Miss and Matt Luke. And then Missouri guys, they take care of Troy at home, and they're now 4-1. Biggest story in this game, guys, Kelly Bryant, huge injury scare. Really dirty play actually by the by one of the Troy defensive ends. Came in, Bryant, was throwing the ball to the end zone. It's about second or two after the play, so it was way after the play was over. Guy just dives at his foot, and his ankle just it does not look good. If y'all are gonna go look that up, just gonna give you a heads up there. It's not pretty. So no injury report though. I checked that today. Most of these colleges, like I said, they put out their injury reports on Monday. So but this is a big one for Missouri. If they lose Kelly Bryant, who's a guy who's proven that he's taken a team to the college football playoff before. If they lose him, that'd be a big loss for them. I still think Missouri's relevant in the SEC East. Probably not with Georgia, but I think if they play their cards right, they're gonna have a chance to beat teams like Florida. I'm still, Florida had a big win at home against Auburn. I know, but I don't think Florida's gonna be a national championship contender. That's just my opinion. I think Missouri would have a chance to beat them. I think Florida's a big level down from Georgia. Maybe that's a team Missouri can beat, but not without Kelly Bryant. I mean, Kelly Bryant is Missouri football right now, and that would just be a devastating loss to that program. So really hope he's okay, just for college football's sake and entertainment's sake. You never like to see injuries, so we all hope Bryant's okay. And then, guys, lastly with the American Conference, definitely a very legit conference. I mean, you have Cincinnati beating UCF, kind of dethroning them as the national champions as they call themselves. Saw them beat UCLA earlier in the year, so certainly a big win for Cincinnati. And then how about SMU? SMU moves to 6-0, undefeated. I don't think anybody has seen this coming for a while. It's been obviously they have never really recovered from the death penalty. But it's really cool to see them 6-0, and who knows? Maybe they keep it rolling, compete for a New Year's Six bowl. Then you got Memphis too, who's 5-0. They've beaten Ole Miss, beaten Navy pretty handily. That's another team out of the American that they can possibly put some wins together and become New Year's Six eligible and play a team out of the SEC or one of these other teams in major conference. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We had a pretty good week of college football. You had Florida, Auburn, Michigan State, Ohio State, so some pretty good matchups. But I think Week 7 will certainly exceed it. You got Texas OU, you got LSU, Florida, you got some other big games. But like I said, guys, thank you for watching. And as always, guys, like, subscribe, comment, share with a friend, turn on your post notifications, all that good stuff, guys. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.